Today I've chosen to talk about tariffs for my persuasive presentation. My point in this presentation is to explain and have you understand my perspective on why tariffs aren't good for the U.S. My three main points I will touch on will be what tariffs are, why they aren't good for the average person, and how moving these factories to the U.S. will make things extremely unaffordable. So tariffs are a really hot topic right now and have been for the last couple months. The definition of the word tariff is a tax or duty to be paid on a particular class of imports or exports. They're a form of tax applied to other countries. Trump introduced charging more on tariffs when he came into office. His reasoning was that this will push companies to bring their manufacturers over and to make things more U.S. made, which in turn he thinks will also make more jobs in America. He wants to reduce the trade deficit, which is the gap between the value of goods it buys from other countries and those it sells to them. He says that the U.S., in his words, are being exploited by cheaters and pillaged by foreigners because we do have lower tariffs, and this has kind of always been like a narrative by some people that we are being scammed or we aren't charging enough. But this does give us an advantage since business owners and people here are able to buy imports from other countries for a cheaper price. On April 2nd, he chose the tariff rates, and they were as low as 10% for the UK and 49% raise for Cambodia, on top of the 10% base tariff that they already have. Trump says he wants to make our trade more fair by equalizing tariffs and offering to revoke some of these tariffs if companies open more of their market to the U.S. The White House decided to tariff these countries based on the trade balance, and they introduced reciprocal tariffs to retaliate. Now I'm explaining what the 1977 International Emergency Economics Power is. It was meant to be used during if we were having national security threats, and it was used during wartime. More specifically, it was when we had the Iran hostage crisis, and Trump is facing legal challenges, and the Supreme Court is investigating the legality of these tariffs. He used the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and by declaring this emergency, he was able to put immediate orders and bypass any of the checkpoints, and he was able to bypass Congress. In August, a U.S. appeals court ruled that most of these changes were unlawful, but the Trump administration appealed that, and now it's just this ongoing battle. My next point is explaining how these tariffs will affect everyone. So tariffs are something that are going to affect everyone. I was reading an article which was published by Georgia State University, which gave example of 2 tariffs pre-Trump that proved that tariffs wouldn't help in the long run. George Bush imposed a tariff on steel products in an attempt to help the steel industry and save it, but it backfired since trading partners felt betrayed, and these longtime partners threatened to retaliate on American-made items. And in turn of all this, more jobs were lost than saved. Another example would be when Obama imposed a 35% tariff on Chinese tires. And he would talk about how it saved 1,200 jobs and the production of tires in America went up. But in 2012, a review was made, and they found that because of this tariff, the prices of tires went up by 26% altogether. And the tariff from this tire cost Americans $1.1 billion, which equaled to 3,700 retail jobs lost. So basically, if you charge tariffs, it's gonna, obviously, you're gonna make more money when you see it, and people are gonna, like our industries in America will shoot up, but then we'll lose money since people are paying a lot more. The Trump administration claims that these tariffs will raise revenue, but this contradicts itself since the higher tariffs you impose, the less revenue you'll see. The administration expects $600 billion from these tariffs. But as customers see prices rising, they don't put more money aside to buy these imported goods. Instead, they'll just buy less of these imported goods. We haven't seen the prices of these imported goods yet, since they're still in the middle of coming over. They're either in warehouses or some of them have come, but it takes about 6 months for prices to go up and 6 months for them to go back down. Some of the recent tariffs are 100% tariff on pharmaceuticals, 25% tariff on foreign-made cars, engines, and other car parts, a 50% tariff on kitchen and bathroom cabinets, and some furniture. With everything rising, we're only seeing our minimum wage maybe rise by a couple dollars. My third point is how moving factories and companies to the US would just make things unaffordable. People who believe that moving companies to the US will drive more jobs into the area forget that there's a huge pay gap difference. For example, a person in Cambodia makes $6 to $15, $15 being they're extremely wealthy. Cambodia is one of the countries where we get up to 40% of our garments, footwear, travel products, and electrical machinery. An example is the price of an Air Jordan, which is one of our most popular and demanded shoes. Costs $15 to $17 to make. And then they sell it for $80 to $200, which covers the cost of marketing, advertising, shipping, retail markups, and overheads. The average price range for a shoe that is imported is around $100. If a shoe is produced in the USA, it will range from $300 to $400, covering all the same expenses. So today I talked about tariffs and what they are and how they don't really help anyone, whether it's the big companies that make less profit or the average person. And to close it off, I talked about what it means to have some of these companies move to the US. And to end my presentation, I just really hope that I educated more on this topic, since it is a very talked about topic right now. And I hope that everyone understood my point of view, and maybe I persuaded some people into understanding why these tariffs aren't benefiting really anyone.